Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is coronavirus tech news for March 18th, 2020, where we talk about the coronavirus, but only as it relates to technology and cybersecurity. You need the health news, get it from somebody else, because this is all about the tech as it's impacting our industry in every which way, shape, or form. Now, from March 17th from the Seattle Times, the US government and the tech industry are discussing ways to harness location data to combat the coronavirus. Now, according to this article, the US government is in active talks with Facebook, Google, and a wide array of tech companies and health experts about how they can use data taken from Americans' phones to combat COVID-19, including tracking whether people are keeping basically one another at safe distances to stem this outbreak. Now, in recent interviews, Facebook executives said that the US government is particularly interested in understanding patterns of people's movements, which can be derived through data the company collects basically from the users who allow it or opt in. That said, I'm sure Facebook is collecting data even if you're not. That is my personal opinion and an aside, but quite frankly, given all the data breaches they've had, I'm pretty sure they're doing it. Now, the tech giant in the past has provided this information to researchers in the form of statistics, in which case this basically case of the coronavirus could help officials predict the next hotspot or decide where to allocate health resources, which quite frankly, if this continues to expand, overwhelm the health resources in the United States and I'm sure other governments and countries around the world. And to quote an official in the White House's Office for Science and Technology Policy, we're encouraged by American technology companies looking to leverage aggregate, anonymized data to glean key insights for COVID-19 modeling efforts. Now, these officials whose insights, quote, might help public health officials, researchers, and scientists improve their understanding of the spread of COVID-19 and transmission of disease. Basically, this is what they're going for. Multiple sources stress that if they proceed, they are not building a government database. And I found that to be a very interesting thing because obviously one of the first flags that we would have in our head is that this is exactly that. You're able to be tracked very easily and in real time because your phone is a sea of sensors, GPS, cell tower locations, apps phoning home. I mean, this is basically what we are looking at here. And you can put on a very large tinfoil hat to say, well, now the government is going to know everything that we do. And we have microcosms of this through companies in the past like Location Smart, where law enforcement could go in without a warrant at will and find your location. And we have large corporate examples of this, like Disney, who gives you a magic band that you can wear in the park. It's basically tagged, it's your room key, it's tagged to your credit card. You basically touch the band Mickey's face and you get to charge things, but it also allows them to track patterns within the park to see what rides are doing well, what rides aren't, where people are moving so that they can strategically market or put resources in those areas. And so now we have the U.S. government looking to do this on a massive 300 million plus society scale. And so that is some crazy news, but here we are. Moving on, this article comes from The Verge on March 12th, and it is entitled, "A Sneaky Attempt to End Encryption is Worming Its Way Through Congress." Now, obviously, the entire world of news, not just here in the United States, but globally, is focused on the coronavirus and the efforts to combat it, runs on toilet paper, and on and on and on and on. And so other stories like this are sneaking past public awareness, but not here, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to actually do a coronavirus update for the tech news. This is exactly the quintessential thing that I'm trying to find, and I have to go looking for these. They're not readily available. Now, one of the things that is basically worming their way through Congress right now is the Eliminating Abusive and Rampant Neglect of Interactive Technologies Act, or EARN-IT, which basically was the subject of a Senate hearing on Wednesday, March 11th. The EARN-IT Act was introduced by Senator Lindsey Graham, he's a Republican of South Carolina, and Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat of Connecticut, so it's bipartisan, along with Senators Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri, and Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California. And this was basically rolled out on March 5th and obviously discussed on the Senate floor on the 11th. The premise of this bill is that technology companies actually have to earn Section 230 protections rather than being granted that immunity by default. Basically, the Communications Decency Act has been there for 2 decades and ensures that a platform like Facebook, for example, or Google cannot be basically prosecuted for something that somebody else does. Meaning, if I am putting up, let's say, criminally illegal things on Facebook, Facebook is not liable for my actions as they are simply a platform and do not control or monitor me and what I do. Now, obviously, they have sensors and that are somewhat reactive and all of that, but at the end of the day, if I'm putting up stuff that could get me thrown into U.S. jail, Facebook is not liable for that. Now, basically, to combat crime like sex trafficking, major platforms like Facebook would then have to weaken or eliminate encryption so federal law enforcement could access all of the data without having to break anything. And so basically what this means is that in order for a Facebook to earn this protection, they would have to basically remove or severely weaken their encryption or give the keys to the encryption over to the federal government so that they could at will go ahead and basically look for things like child trafficking and other crimes. Here's the thing, though, and we are looking at this from the privacy stance, and I've talked about Section 230 before, is that 99.999% of all users, the billions of them on Facebook, for example, are law-abiding. We're not posting criminal things that would get us into trouble, but we also, if we are using that platform, would have zero privacy when it came to access by the US government. And so that is another example of lowest common denominator lawmaking when we are not necessarily protecting the rights of the vast, vast, vast majority, but here we are weakening it for everybody because of the bad apples. And nobody is saying that criminals should go unpunished or should be found, but we also have to balance that with the privacy that we enjoy as a citizen. Feel free to disagree, as I'm sure some will. And finally, in no good deed goes unpunished news here for the coronavirus, as a recent report in the Tech Times reported, we are talking about Chiara Hospital located in Italy. Now, a 3D printer there was able to save the lives of 10 different Italian coronavirus patients, basically because they were able to reproduce a unique replacement valve for broken ventilators after the hospital supply ran out. Now, this gets interesting, but because of this, the medical device manufacturer saw that these were being printed for cheap and threatened to sue the group of volunteers that were basically loaning their 3D printer to basically do this. Now, what happens here is the valve was officially manufactured by this medical device manufacturer, and I have been looking for that device manufacturer, and I cannot confirm who they are. No article is reporting this, but basically these valves cost $11,000 to the hospital from this manufacturer, but the replica that they are creating via 3D printers only costs $1 to manufacture. Now, these $1 versions are not nearly as durable as the $11,000 one, but basically, they are doing this, for free to save lives, and they can be printed on demand. And so, basically, 2 people, Christian Fracassi and Alessandro Ramioli, have a business and decided to offer their 3D printer to manufacture the replicas and save lives. Now, by virtue of this, they went to this manufacturer and said, we would like the specs and blueprints of this so that we can reproduce these. This is an emergency. We're not looking to make money. And the device manufacturer said, no, this is proprietary patent. We are not going to give this to you. And so Fracassi and Ramioli basically took one of these valves, made out the dimensions, figured out how to print the exact replica of that, and started doing this. And here's what we're talking about. Now, I totally understand about intellectual property theft and defense of intellectual property, but in a situation like this where you are running out of supplies and there's an extreme need, you kind of got to look the other way on this. And if anything, what would help the medical device manufacturer is basically to say, yes, we will help, we will supply, we will do whatever we want. Our people will run the whole 3D printing. We'll send 2 people there so we can keep it proprietary and to ourselves and all of this. But I predict through something like this, we're going to see cheap 3D printed versions of these things starting to hit the markets, and I think we're going to have a lot of intellectual copyright laws violated, sued on, whatever, in the next few years, because quite frankly, if they're printing these things for $1, and granted they're not as durable, and maybe you need 10 to 1, but that is still $10 of printing for 10 different valves versus $11,000 the hospital has to pay for a single one. So it would make sense that even if you're replacing these valves with more frequency due to breakage, it is significantly less expensive for the hospital to do this. But I can also understand the intellectual property side, and as we are going through the middle of this, I think it really behooves us all to band together and kind of turn the blind eye. In the same way, a lot of companies are saying, you know what, we have a certain policy on the amount of sick days. You're only allowed, 5 or 10 sick days for the year here in America. A lot of companies are saying, you know what, this is an unprecedented situation. If you're out for a week, we're not going to count that against you because everybody is self-isolating here. So I think that's something that we need to consider here, and we all need to pull together, but no good deed goes unpunished. And so with that, that is your coronavirus tech news for March 18th, 2020. And I hope all of you guys are staying healthy out there. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.